Hey, welcome to this week's educational series titled From Flab to Fab. You don't want to say
that real fast.
Yeah, you don't want to say it too fast because you'll get it mixed up. So I want to start by eliminating some misconceptions. So, and I get this from a lot of my high school athletes, that the minute they pick up a free weight, they will instantly become a bodybuilder. And if you ask any bodybuilder, they're going to tell you that that is definitely not the instant. It takes a lot more work than what you think to become as chiseled as these folks are.
That's me on the right.
And then the other thing about gaining weight, you potentially will gain weight, but that's a good thing because you're adding lean mass. You're not adding fat mass, which in turn will then increase your basal metabolic rate, which means that you'll burn more energy throughout the day to keep your body running. Your BMR is the energy needed to sustain your bodily functions and to just be alive. And yes, you do burn calories in your sleep. So if you increase your basal metabolic rate, you then increase your daily caloric expenditure. So here's a great graph that I found. Your basal metabolic rate being the larger portion of the calories that you spend throughout the day. Physical activity actually didn't account for very much of that. So if you do work out, that's awesome, but that actually doesn't account for the majority of the calories that you burn throughout the day. So where do you start? What you have to take into consideration, what are your goals? What are your goals with weight training? And one of the big things to do is actually to take measurements. And we fortunately have a wonderful machine in Conference Room D that can take your body composition, and the printout scale is perfect because it actually, you get your basal metabolic rate, and then also your fat-free mass, which is important, and then
Percent body fat, 19%.
yeah, for this 29-year-old male. And it's just like with any exercise program, you want to have a starting point because you want to know where you're at, and then once you do complete whatever cycle it is of your workout plan, that you see if you had any results. And this is important, especially with with weight training, because if you just step onto a normal scale and say I see 185 pounds and I work out for 8 weeks, and I step back onto that scale and it says 184 pounds or 86 pounds, whether it be plus or minus what it was before, if I don't see a difference, I've suddenly become, distraught by, did I just waste 8 weeks? Whereas with this scale, it breaks it down so that you're actually able to see the difference in your body. So let's go through some basic exercises. My first suggestion is to, if you're new to weight training, to actually maintain large muscle groups, not necessarily get into small muscle group specific lifts. So I'll go through some here. On your left, you see just a basic body squat, or an air squat, what some people will say, and then in the middle picture of the woman then does the body squat into a jump. A very simple exercise that you don't need any equipment for. Then you see the gentleman on the left doing a split squat with weight, and then you see the traditional squat on the right. For your arms, basic, the bicep, tricep. So on your left you have the ever so popular bicep curl, but done with a TheraBand resistance band. Then in the middle you have overhead tricep extension, which will also get a little bit of your back supporting muscles. And then you have the posterior tricep extension. I don't know what you would technically call that last one, but in a bent position, and then extending the arm. Exercises for the chest and back, you have the bench press, and then also the push-up, which are great exercises. In the bottom, the bottom middle That's an upright row for your trapezius and your deltoid muscles. And then the pull-up. If you're not able to complete a pull-up, I don't think I did a pull-up until I was like 19 years old. You can definitely use the lat pull-down machine, which then you can set the resistance that you need. You gotta love presidential fitness tests. I think I was the only kid in high school that didn't do a pull-up. And then going to the shoulder, taking care of your rotator cuff and then your deltoid. So the two exercises on the left, internal and external rotation of the shoulder. You really want to use lightweight with those because the muscles are very small and they can be damaged very easily. And then going to the right, we have the deltoid. The fly is the one on the bottom, shoulder fly, and then the press on top. And then finally, core and abdominal muscles. I'm not an advocate for the plank, or I'm sorry, not, ooh, that's bad. Not for the crunch, because the crunch you can definitely strain your lower back, and then people always want to get those 5 or 6 more, so then they grab onto their neck, and then they're pulling on their neck to get those last sit-ups in, and then you end up hurting your neck too. So it's as far as core activation goes, the crunch is not very effective. The best exercise to do is actually to do a plank, which you see on the left. If you need to, you can modify it and start on your knees, but then keeping that your torso in line, then that isometric contraction, the contraction without movement, actually strengthens within 10 to 15 degrees of that 0 degree. So you bend forward, back, you strengthen those muscles. So how many sets and reps? I found this chart online, and I was so happy I did because I was going to try to break down each one of these boxes into a slide, and I'm so happy that it did the way that it did. So as you increase your reps, you're going to change what's going on, and then hypertrophy being the building of muscle or the gaining of muscle. To keep a lift within benefits of gaining strength, you want to have it be 1 to 5 reps. To keep it within strength endurance, you want 6 to 12, and then endurance 15, and if you want to rep out 100 of whatever, that sounds kind of painful. But when it comes to sets, you really want to feel the burn, and I put asterisks there because there's this sensation that you get from lifting that you should feel a slight burn in your muscles, and that is actually your muscle fibers tearing apart, which then will rebuild and multiply and then gain strength. It's kind of an odd concept. If you imagine Velcro, the way that your muscles contract and actually slide past each other, but you want to, when you're lifting, what you're doing is you're actually tearing those bridges apart so that they then multiply and rebuild and become stronger. Velcro is actually the easiest way to understand the actin-myosin bridge. So when I say how many sets, it's really how you want to feel in your goals. There's a lot of people that they stick with 2, 3, 4. I know some guys that'll go into the gym and they'll do 1 lift, but they'll do like 8 or 9 sets of it. You know, whether or not they're seeing benefit from it, I'm not sure, but that's what they want to do, and that burn is really the goal. But then keep in mind that it's a slight feeling. It shouldn't be like I'm lifting until I can't move my arms, because the likelihood is that you're going to damage something else in doing so.
So I have a question. With that, let's say you do 10 reps of a movement. Well, what's the sets? How many sets of 10 reps do you do?
And that would be that achieving that that feeling, that,
Oh, that feel the
yeah,
burn.
the feel the burn feeling, if you will.
Okay.
There's not necessarily, I mean, personally, I stick with, I mean, it depends on, how much time I have, and then if I'm able to, I'll do a lower weight with a higher set rep so that I'm lifting more, but usually if I'm not in a rush, I'll use 4 or 5 sets, but if I'm in a rush, I'll do 2 or 3, and then I just increase the weight so that I do have that same feeling.
As far as the weight, I mean, you're supposed to do like just whatever you can do with good technique.
Correct.
The heaviest you can do with good technique.
Correct. Well, and that also depends on what you're looking to do. Setting your 1 rep max for certain lifts can be difficult, and you would need the use of a spotter. So that's typically what I say. Something that's difficult but not strenuous, you are able to complete at least 2 to 3 sets. And thank you for bringing that up. Important things to consider, and as a healthcare specialist, I would always suggest to warm up and have a proper cool down. That way you avoid injury. Avoid the Valsalva maneuver, which is the bearing down or the holding of your breath. And while you're weightlifting, research shows that you can spike your blood pressure and your heart rate just by doing that. So if you avoid that, those with hypertension are able to safely lift. And always, always, always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. Any other questions?